Good? We good? Okay, welcome to the Essex Junction Trustee meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And welcome everybody, and if you haven't signed in, please do so. Pat, do we have any agenda additions or change? Actually, we'll get to that after this first piece. We've got a little bit of a, oh no, right, yeah, we did this first. Do we have any additions? Changes?
Well, we don't have any paper additions, but we do have a possibility of a change, and that would be adjusting, move 5C up to 5A.1 if it's so
Yeah,
determined.
let me get the general sense of the room, and particularly since Joe is here. I think everybody that we were going to interview tonight, and I want to say, first of all, normally in the past we've done these interviews in executive session, but there's no reason for us to be doing them in executive session. Normally, when we do a first-time appointment, we would do an executive session in case there was something we wanted to ask a personal question or something like that. But since you're all reappointments, we just sort of went with having it just be an open session. But the other thing I was going to suggest is that at the end of the reappointment interviews, we then had scheduled Maura Collins to give a discussion about affordable housing and committee and planning grant. And I wasn't sure if maybe some of you would want to stay, actually want to hear the presentation first, and then we could do the reappointment interview and discussion after that. But I also, since we scheduled you all for around 6:30 or between 6:30 and 7, if you have somewhere to go right away, I didn't want to hold you up. I'm going to kind of just get a sense, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot. If any of you really have to kind of get going, let me know. But I think the order we had was Andrew Boutan, Aaron Martin, John Alden, Nick Meyer, and Joe Wythe, in that order, and then we were going to listen to Maura. And so any of you, Andrew, Aaron, John, Nick, Joe, if you have someplace, do you have a preference for? I think Maura said should be about 20 minutes more.
I'm hoping 15.
15?
You guys have been here since 2, so I'm thinking the quicker I am, the happier you'll be.
Yeah, but the rest of you, please let me know. If you want to get your interview out of the way. Andrew? Can't see you back there. You good?
You should go first, sure.
Would everyone be okay with that? And so, Maura, do you want to do that? Because I thought it might be kind of interesting for us to catch, and then we can get on with the interviews.
Thanks.
Come on up, Maura.
I'm not here often. Is this a good spot for me?
That's great.
Okay. Hi. For the record, I'm Maura Collins. I'm a resident of Essex Junction. I'm speaking to you in 2 capacities today. One as a resident, and one as part of my day job, which is as the policy director for the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. There's no potential conflict between the two. It's just technically work didn't ask me to be here for one of these reasons, but they love it that I'm here, so it's not a big deal.
Okay.
So you received a memo from me about an affordable housing committee, and I'd actually like to take that second, and first I'd like to ask you for a request that I've met with Pat about. I don't know if Pat wants to kick off.
Excuse me, I think we need a vote to approve the agenda change.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank
sorry,
you.
technical
No,
issue.
you're doing great, Maura.
Okay. And I didn't get this memo written until today, so you weren't emailed this one. I'd like to hand it out to you, and
Sure.
then I can email it so that it's in your materials. Sorry, Ian.
No worries.
And then for the lucky 3 of you, someone can look on if you really care. Here you go, John. So here's what's happening. VHFA, back in 2003, created a housing data website. The data website has been a tremendous tool in the state If you were to go there, which I'm sure everyone has been to housingdata.org, because that's how we all spend our Friday nights, you could pull up a profile of the housing market data for every village, town, county, or statewide. If you were to pull it up, you would get about 6.5 pages of data. You would get information about the people who live there, their ages, household size, renters, owners, things like that. Information about housing costs, home ownership and rental costs, the housing stock, so communities would know about mobile homes and how many people are living in RVs, and then incomes and their ability to afford housing. There's also a complete directory of all the affordable housing in the state. So when you all say, well, how much affordable housing do we have in Essex Junction? I would go there, and of the 13,500 units, I'd tell you how many are in the Junction.
Okay.
Site was created in '03. We upgraded it in maybe '08 or so. Technology's changing. We want to do a major overhaul of this website. We want to make that directory of all the affordable housing much more consumer-oriented so that it's easier for people who are low income, who might be eligible for the housing, to be able to see where the vacancies are and what the rents are, and give more information about amenities and types of things that people would care about. And on the data side, spend advances in technology so that we can automatically data link from the sources to this website, so that we don't get bogged down with, oh, we have to update the data, and then we put it off for a few weeks, and then it's stale. And what we hope is that at the end of the day, people like me or municipal officials or regional planning commissions would end up with, instead of 6.5 pages of all the housing data you can imagine possible, we would sort of cull the information and prioritize it so that someone would end up with a double-sided piece of paper that would pull out the most important housing needs for a community. The goal of this is that every 5 years, the state needs to do a housing needs assessment in order to apply or to get federal funds for housing. And every 5 years, the folks pay tens of thousands of dollars, do this housing needs assessment. By the time the numbers come out, everyone starts looking at them closely, going, well, that doesn't make sense for the state, or this looks funny, or how'd you come up with that? And oftentimes, the policy discussions are already starting to happen, and we don't have enough time to really vet the numbers. So if this website could be the bulk of that housing needs assessment for the state, it would not only save the investment every 5 years, but the information would be fresh, people would be used to looking at it, it'd be handy. So to do this project, I need, depending on the final scope, between $50,000 and $60,000. When I say I actually mean the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. It needs about $50,000 or $60,000 to do this whole thing. We don't have the internal capacity to do all the web work. We have to hire consultants. We have a commitment from all the state's regional planning commissions to fund $10,000 of it. I'm here today because I'd like to use that $10,000 as a match and apply for a community development block grant, planning grant through the state. CDBG is something that this village has applied for in the past. Oftentimes that money is used to fund affordable housing, can be used for other purposes. And in those other situations, for instance, if that money goes to housing, there is then a very long-term commitment to keep this money on the books, and the municipality has applied for the money on behalf of a developer, because community development block grant money can only be accessed through municipalities. I'm asking if you all would consider being the municipality in the state who applies for this CDBG planning grant to pay for this website work. Because it's a planning grant, if we were successful in getting awarded from the state, again, we would have that match money from the RPCs to round out the full budget. VHFA would not only do all the paperwork of doing the pre-application, but the application, and go to the CD board and do everything. And then at the conclusion of this web redevelopment program, this would close out with the state, and it would not be an ongoing commitment by the municipality in any way, which I'm addressing because this was one of Pat's concerns when we first met.
Okay.
The website would serve the entire state, so you all would be acting as the municipality to apply, but really it would benefit all the communities in the state, which would be a wonderful leadership role for the village. And I plan on bringing together a steering committee of for this project, and I would like to invite either a member of the trustees or maybe someone from the planning commission or someone from Essex Junction to be the municipal voice in that group to sort of say, you know what, here's the kind of data we need. You know, you haven't always included a lot of racial demographics. We really need that. Can you please include that? I plan on having someone from the regional planning commissions similarly serve on this, as well as some special populations that we know that we'd like to be represented. People advocating for people who are low income and maybe people with disabilities. I haven't fleshed out the entire thing. The website, as you can see in the attachment, this is, it does exist now. You can see some of the enhancements that we plan to do. We plan to, instead of just telling you all the straight numbers and making Robin go through it and figure out what's important, we have ways that we're going to try to highlight that and do more math for people so that it's calculating the need automatically, as well as more mapping and better graphics overall, so that the information is user-friendly for both the public and those working with the data. The data itself is rarely VHFA created. It's mostly, this is a portal of pulling together multiple sources into one site, which we've heard has been tremendously helpful to communities when updating town plans or comprehensive plans and needing to get all sorts of needs data. Do you have questions for me about this? I know I've gone fast.
That's okay, that's okay. I want to just state, ask for the record, I know that this doesn't require, I'm guessing this isn't required a financial commitment from the village, but I just want to make sure. We're basically acting in a sense as a pass-through.
You are.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll just get that clear.
So how this would work is that if this seems like something the trustees want to ask me to continue with, you wouldn't actually, I don't really need to make a formal motion tonight. I need to make sure that you're okay with me pursuing this. What would happen is that by Thursday, we would put a notice into the reporter warning for a public hearing, which is a requirement of this. I would like to ask if I could come back to your July 11th meeting and have a public hearing on this. I have the language actually with me on both what that public hearing needs to say exactly, as well as what the language would be that you would vote on the 11th. And then we would submit the application to the state this summer. It would be taken up at the October community development meeting. And at that point, if we were funded, we would start the work within a few weeks after that. Hopefully get it wrapped up in early-ish 2018. And once the project is done, again, it closes out. There'd be no, I'm not asking for any money from you all. I have to acknowledge that it's not only your time, but I believe I'm gonna need some signatures from Pat, but at this point, like, we've already done up the pre-application and we haven't needed anything from you all, so I may just have to ask for, I don't know, something to get a copy of things.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
really know
yeah, yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it.
Yeah. Trustees?
I'm all for it.
I
It's
think we
great.
need-
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's nice that you're asking us as this municipality to be
Yep.
the pass-through organization, and that's really great, and I think there's been requests in the community for more attention being paid to affordable housing in general. This is a great way to keep our data updated and to be deeply involved in it, well, as deeply as it can be in the data collection, so thank you, Maura.
Just a question for awareness, so the 40,000 from the CDBG application that would have gone to directly possibly building affordable housing, correct? This could have
No.
otherwise gone, no.
Because the state picks how much money they want to do for those implementation grants,
Okay.
and then they pick how much they're going to save for planning grants.
So this is not gonna directly impact the possibility of building affordable housing?
Correct. The state decided that they are going to siphon off a part for planning. And in fact, I may not be successful come October because they've lowered the amount for planning grants. So my competition just got, my pot just got smaller to apply for it.
But people like, actionable and timely data as opposed to untimely.
This has a lot of support from the state, the RPCs, communities, because I think everyone sees, as the one who gets hired to do these needs assessments, town after town, I can tell you, I'm doing the same thing every time for the most part. And it's going to this website, getting the data, and then writing it up. So there'd be a real efficiency for the state overall if we could move towards a more streamlined system.
So it's saving us money as well.
Yes. As a state, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Dan, you could-
No, I know Lori can't be here right now, but she expressed
Yeah,
her,
she said
her agreement and support of what you were coming to us with for this grant.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm good with it. Yeah, I think, Pat, do you have anything to add? You-
No, it's just, if you need any staff support, of course, marginal amounts. We have the very capable Robin Pierce, standing and sitting, ready to assist, so.
Great.
And if you don't, that's fine too. But
And before I let you go, our audience just happens to be a lot of planners. So
Yep.
I'll let, any of you folks have any questions for Maura, or probably not, but you're also welcome to come back when we formally pass this, but, yeah.
I'm curious how current is the housing data right now? Is it this, you're building this site now, is it already up and running?
No, we have the site up and running. Because we don't have that automatic data collection feed, it gets latent, and so I think right now we have the 2014 American Community Survey data up there. But what I'd like to do is, my goal is to streamline that so it wouldn't, because the 2015 data is available, and I don't think 2016 is yet, but, so it's up and running, but it's won awards, it's great, but at this point, if you look at it, it's gonna look dated to you. It's not that user-friendly. We need to make it more graphics, more easy to read, more consumer-friendly.
So the information's in there, it's about a year old now, as it stands right now?
3.
Yeah, well, the 2014 data, and at the village level, you'd wanna use a rolling 5-year average, so that actually is from 2014 back 5 years, and they've averaged that together. Otherwise, your margin of error gets too big, but I'm happy to talk data.
Any other questions? Everyone good?
No, we just know who to call when we need some more input on the planning commission
Yeah?
for housing. I mean, we get housing questions and housing projects all the time, and we spent a lot of time in our last rewrite of the LDC trying to figure out how to promote and what to promote, or incentivize for housing. So I see it as a super opportunity for us to be better at that.
If the PC ever wants to have a specific meeting about that, you guys are more than welcome. We totally support that, to talk about this. Yeah.
It's actually one of the other enhancements I didn't mention was that my hope, and I haven't cleared this with a web designer, so I don't know if this is possible, but my hope is that if from the data we can see that the needs are in a certain area, then we already have this index of policy tools and incentives that can respond in different situations. So if you're a shrinking community with a decaying rental stock and abandoned homes, things like that, you're gonna wanna put in different policy tools than if you're a growing community that needs to accommodate more small households and things like that. And so I'm hoping to have a way to kind of meta tag the policy tools so that if the data shows needs in certain areas, there's a way to kind of highlight those. At this point, we do have robust information about the policy tools, and so with examples about where in Vermont and where out of state those have been used with sample verbiage that people have put into plans. So we try to make it as helpful as possible for people to adopt.
Okay, well, I think you've got a unanimous support and to move ahead, and we'll be seeing you back here in July.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. What, now was that it? You've got another?
No, I have one more thing to
Yes,
ask.
go ahead.
So you have a memo from me. I have a very similar memo that went to the select board, and I addressed the same issue with them. But there has been, and I agree with Elaine and others, John, to say that there, when I read Front Porch Forum, there seems to be a continual discussion about housing and affordable housing. And so I would like to encourage the trustees to do what many of the neighboring communities have done and consider, and I'm asking if you would consider creating an affordable housing committee for, ideally, it would be the Junction and the town, because I'm one of those people. So if we could please consider, like, South Burlington has an affordable housing committee that began several years ago. VHFA staffed it a bit, did some data analysis for them, but then it lived on after that report, and they actually have now used some of the tools that John's talking about, and now they have some inclusionary zoning in their city center area and are looking at other changes. Williston has an affordable housing committee that is specifically looking at creating a housing trust fund to leverage the strength of their strong retail market and housing market there. Burlington has long had a committee. I think that when I look at the data and when I hear the conversations around town, taking into account the thoughtful growth and action that Heart and Soul came up with, that the time is now that there are, I think you would find enough volunteers to work on a committee like this. I know that personally, as a resident, I would be very interested in something like this. And I'm guessing that, I don't know how your channels are to put out the word for these things, but that you would get others who may be similarly interested. I mean, I would come with a lot of the data to support this work, as well as the policy tools, but I think that it would be important to have a collaborative community voice on this topic, because you could put up any building anywhere and have 50 opinions about what we like or don't like about it and what we should or shouldn't have on any
That
of
does
this.
happen.
So in my memo, I talked about how this is in support of, your comprehensive plan talks about the changes happening in housing.
Yep.
You have objectives and goals that I think this group could address for you. I would strongly recommend that this be something done either in partnership with the Planning Commission, or that there be a lot of overlap. I think it's a lot to ask a Planning Commission to do on top of their regular work, but I don't want to speak for the Planning Commission. But that is another approach, is that sometimes municipalities have tasked the Planning Commission with, okay, you go be our Affordable Housing Committee, although depending on the workload of the Planning Commission, that could be burdensome or not.
Yeah, it also, when we were talking earlier at our retreat, it in my mind anyway, it kind of gets into a little bit of an area when you say you've got two agendas. You've got a planning commission that is supposed to be looking at the land development code and assessing applications, but then if they're also saying, well, we're advocating for affordable housing, we certainly want that, you want affordable housing, but it seems like you might be potentially presenting them with a conflict.
Yep.
I don't know if I maybe.
And that is why many municipalities have separated out also to have a separate committee that then would make a recommendation to the trustees and get the weigh-in of the planning commission. And so you can structure it in many ways. I can provide to you, in fact, I think I linked in the memo, I have links to the charges that South Burlington and Williston have done. And I'm hearing, I just did a needs assessment for the city of Winooski last year, and I'm hearing that they're gonna be picking that up and doing something. I'm not positive, I don't wanna be on the record, but I heard something that they may be looking at creating an affordable housing committee as well.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. But I heard it, so someone thinks it. So it would be a conversation about Do you want to endorse this sort of thing? Is there a governance structure that you all could put into place to have volunteers
Right.
sign up for this sort of thing?
Okay.
Well, we do have the model of the joint stormwater committee that we could also look at utilizing to have there be a joint
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Oh, yeah, it's, I think, I would, I'm gonna guess that the select board would be interested in working on us, working with this on.
That's a
with us.
good guess.
So, I don't, just, but I wanna hear what the other trustees think, you guys?
No, I agree. I think in an advisory role, I mean, working with the planning commissions, both planning commissions, you know?
I recall it was a village meeting or a town meeting, at least one resident stood up and requested that we do just this.
Yeah.
Town meeting, yeah. And
Yeah.
I know she's interested if this happened. She was with me at the select board meeting when we were
Okay.
talking about
Who,
similar
who
issues.
was that?
Paula DiMichele.
Okay,
So, and she's not the first person that has said something to us, so I think this is it's about time. Thank you for bringing it together, and I would support it 100%.
well, what we can do is put this on an upcoming agenda to talk about it and pass, how we would approach how moving forward with it, to form an affordable housing. I think it's something we'd wanna discuss with the town
Right.
select board.
And we need to come up with a job description for
All people that.
people who
Yeah.
want to come on the committee. We need to come up with some sort of advertisement.
Okay. Again, I'll throw it open to the planners in the audience and the others who are not planners. Anyone, any questions regarding this? Yeah, Joe.
Just have a question. Have you done a needs assessment for Essex Junction or the town?
Nope.
And that might be the place to start.
Yeah, and that, there's a couple ways you can do a needs assessment. For one, you can hire it out and it'll cost you $20,000-$30,000. Another way would be to have a volunteer committee sort of parse out the work, and then they each take a little bit, and then it can get done that way. Sometimes communities don't know anything, I mean, they want to know all the needs, and so it becomes a big project. Other times they say, can you just talk about affordable housing and not get into all the market rate, you know what I mean? And that makes the scope smaller. But that could be the first charge of this group.
The needs assessment.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone else? Any other questions for more? Good.
What would be, I hear you, and I think you're right, to talk about with the select board
Yeah.
and figure out these governance issues. I know you don't just want to say, yeah, 5 people, but you need job descriptions and all, but what can I expect, or what should I look for? What can I do to help move this along?
Well, I think what we'd probably want to do is,
Job
it's tough.
descriptions.
What, I'm sorry? Pat?
Job descriptions.
Yeah,
Okay.
job descriptions. And then if we have a joint meeting coming up fairly soon. I don't know if we could tack it into that meeting agenda and invite you to come. And then you could help guide us and give us some ideas about how to go about, proceed with this. Other thoughts? Does that sound good, or any other ideas? Yeah?
Yeah.
But I think that would probably be, I mean, the thing is, if we say we're gonna do this, we wanna do this jointly with the town,
Yeah.
we don't wanna then proceed making our own plan for how it's gonna happen, and then say, here, by the way, hey, town, here's how we're gonna do it, so.
I completely agree.
Yeah, so we wanna proceed together. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned what Williston did and what others have done. If you have a little summary of what our neighbors are doing, that would be very
yes,
helpful
Yeah.
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
Like what their final recommendations were, or how
Yes.
they structured
How
themselves?
they structured themselves,
Yep.
and
Yep.
was it an ad hoc committee, or was it a committee in perpetuity, those kinds of things?
Mhm.
Well, the thing, when you're saying the needs assessment, and when you're saying ad hoc committee or in perpetuity, it seems like something that would go on, because the needs assessment's gonna change, I assume, every less than a decade, maybe 5 years, I don't know, what, maybe you could tell me, how often would you do a needs assessment?
Yeah, it depends on the community and how rapidly it's changing. You kind of know it when you see it. There's some communities that don't, unfortunately, need them that often. But one of the things that we like to joke about is like, well, so many towns have cemetery commissions, and how many of those change? You know what I mean? Like, that's a standing commission in most municipalities, and I get that, I'm, with apologies to people on the very important cemetery commission,
Yes,
but
yes.
you know, affordable housing is something that I hear a lot, and not just because of my job, but again, Front Porch Forum or at barbecues and things, people are talking about housing more than they're talking about other issues that we have committees for. So the idea of having a standing committee, I think sends a message by the municipality that housing is an ongoing issue. And there are communities that broaden it, and they don't call it an affordable housing committee, but they call it a housing committee, and they, you know, yes, much of their work is on affordable housing, but it's not solely limited to that, because people can define affordable housing in many ways, which is a much bigger conversation.
Maura, are you gonna, maybe I didn't hear you correctly, are you also going to, do you have are you going to the select board to talk to them about this?
No, I spoke with them, gosh, when was it? You were
Meeting
actually at the
before
meeting.
last.
What? Yeah,
Meeting before last.
meeting before last, you know, that
Okay.
date. And I sent the request in late, I was on at about 10:15 at night.
Oh.
And so
That's really for us.
they smiled and nodded, and there was no objection to it, but I
Uh-huh.
wasn't, you know, again, like this, I know you're not gonna be able to make a formal action all at once.
Mhm.
And so I don't want to say what the
Okay,
thoughts of them were.
then let's, yeah, I don't wanna hang you up. Maybe we can figure out some way to speed it up besides just waiting for our next joint meeting. Maybe
Well,
we can
I'm not,
ask-
no, I mean, the funding that we talked about earlier, that
Yeah.
one, I have a deadline
Yeah,
for,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
but this.
This one, okay. Well,
I mean, honestly,
Okay,
you should
we'll
have
get
had
to
one
it.
4 years ago,
Okay.
6 years ago, or whatever, so
Okay.
if we wait another month, it's not gonna,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll be in the immediate data gathering mode, and it will depend heavily on Maura Collins for
Okay,
that data
sounds good.
gathering. So we'll show action through Maura.
Okay. In the meantime, I will get you the structure of the committees that I'm familiar with, mainly in Chittenden County, probably.
Yes,
And then, as well as maybe some sample job descriptions, because I know that they exist,
yes.
or a draft for you all to consider, and that way it would give you a starting point.
Good, thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Maura.
Thanks, Maura.
Thank you.
So I thought that what we would do, we're gonna do it in the order here, and here's the order. We're gonna do Andrew Boutan, the Planning Commission, Aaron Martin for the Zoning Board, John Alden for Planning Commission, Nick Meyer for Tree Advisory Committee, and Joe White for Planning Commission. And I thought we'd have one at a time come on up here. Andrew, do you wanna come up? Sure. And this isn't, you, what? Do you want to do, we talked about that, did we make a decision about that? Yeah, okay, well,
I think
let's, all right,
it's
good.
kind of-
If my fellow trustees are acting as my memory, which is always a good thing. And so we kind of talked about also having the other two planning commissioners come on up, and why don't we just talk about the planning commission and reappointments and what's happening on the planning commission and everything, and then go from there. And then,
Question of clarification, since this is a quorum of the current planning commissioners, if we ask general questions about how things are going at the planning commission, does that then mean they need to warn a meeting?
Is this a quorum? Do you have 7 members?
Oh, you have 7 members.
Yeah, there's not a quorum.
it's a 7-member board. That's okay, but I think it's,
It's not a quorum, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I'm not sure who'd be offended if it was.
Open meeting.
I wouldn't.
We work for you, so ask away.
I just don't want to break a law. That important.
Well, so, gentlemen, I'm going to start off by saying that I think on behalf of all of us, I want to tell you, we really appreciate, we know that being on the Essex Junction Planning Commission is a good time, very interesting. We were talking about how some people really express their community engagement and commitment with a great passion, and you are on the receiving end of that passion a lot of the time, and we appreciate you being on that and receiving the passion. So I want to just get that out of the way. We acknowledge and appreciate the time and effort you put in for being on the planning commission. And we don't have a list of questions. we're assuming that you're willing to keep going, since you've asked for reappointments, and so we're glad about that. But I'll sort of say, how are things going? Are everything going well? Are things going the way, are we doing anything from the trustee perspective that, anything that we could be doing that helps you do your jobs better? So I'll open it up with that, and we'll probably have some other questions.
I don't prepared or anything, but
Yep.
I do read the Front Porch Forum on my computer every morning and hear a lot of grumbling in the neighborhood about some of the planning decisions that we made.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not gonna answer them on behalf of the planning commission, but I'm like, I'd like to, but,
Yep, I know.
you know, that building across the street, there's a lot of complaints about that, no parking, very little parking, and I get it, you know, so next time we're not gonna give waivers or something, I don't know what we're gonna do, but there's a lot of grumbling about the parking issues.
Right.
And, you know, I'd like to say something, but I'm not gonna, of course, but.
Well, we were talking about it, we had a kind of we have an annual retreat, the trustees, a sort of blue sky discussion about all sorts of things, and that was one of the things we focused some time on, was what we're gonna do. And we have some ideas, we don't have specific remedies for this, but we have a couple different ideas about how we might approach it. And it's something to keep in mind. I would add, though, that it is kind of hard to predict ahead of time exactly how much parking a store or a business that's opening up is going to need. So, you know, it's a difficult situation. One of the things we talked about is potentially looking at a building, trying to get people interested in building some kind of a parking facility in the village center. Putting the financing and getting all the legal and legislative stuff together for that. Obviously, it's a huge issue, but it's something that we may want to think about. And we talked about also having a work session with the property owners, some of the relevant property owners, to get their perspective on the parking, the owner of 4 Pearl Street and across the street and so forth, to get them in and to see what their perspective is. They own other properties, some of them do, how they handle parking in other communities, and to just get some ideas. So we are certainly aware of it. We don't have a particular solution right now, but we're aware of it, and that it's not something that's probably not entirely going to be handled by the Planning Commission. It's probably something that's going to have to be handled at our level as well. And if I want to jump in here, other guys.
Does the village governance or the gals in the office, do they answer any of those questions that people come up with? Is it being monitored in any way?
For Front Porch Forum?
Yeah, people are saying, is there anything being done, or is, you know, like, they're asking questions and, you know,
Yeah.
somebody here that has of authority can answer them and kind of lead them in the right way, or just kind of generally answer some questions?
I don't think there's any, I think we like George said, we addressed the issue. I brought it up when I was running for the seat that I'm in now again. Down in Burlington, there's a lot of things you can do. One is building a parking structure maybe in the community, in the village center. But other communities, as I brought to the board before, down in Burlington along Lake Street, down towards the waterfront, there's some businesses there that allow for public parking after hours and on weekends, which maybe that's something that we should be doing here. I've expressed with businesses around here who have maybe empty lots on weekends or at night, and maybe we could work something out with the businesses. And the parking that we have, I think there's an issue with people not being aware of potential parking, especially people coming into the village or through the village, not seeing where they could park behind the municipal offices here, behind the Brown Library, or down at the Park Street School after hours. And a lot of the times when people are going to be utilizing the restaurants or the businesses in the area where they're going to want to park, those are places that people may not be aware of are available. So we're just trying to find ways to get the message out. And we do have a lot over here where the Colbord building used to be, law office, Gabe Handybot, and he's agreed to leave that open for public parking right now. We've put some Sure-Pack down to firm up the ground there, so people, and we're looking at, you know.
I never see any signs, you know, those big blue
Well,
signs with a big
yeah,
key
we're gonna-
this
That's,
way.
we're
and
gonna-
this way.
we're working on that, and also putting something on the website to where the available parking is in the village, so we can get the message out to people. That's what we're trying to do.
So the new signs are in the making?
Map
Well,
of
this is a map of
available
available parking right there.
Yeah, but if somebody coming into town, never been there before, they're never gonna have a clue where.
Yeah.
Right, so signage is what we're gonna do.
We need to do what,
Oh, I think one of your earlier questions was, you know, are we responding to the comments from folks? And I think as a general rule, we tend to not respond unless there's something grossly inaccurate or something that's not appropriate. And sometimes we have had multiple postings that occur that are just, like, they just get to be too much. And usually they sort of build up, and then that's when we all get an email from George, who's like, all right, I'm writing a letter.
yeah, I know.
And so
Yeah.
we try not to jump in every single time, but when, you responded to something recently when someone posted an inaccuracy regarding our tax abatement. So, you know, it seems to be the same group of people that are making comments, and I think people are noticing that who it's coming from may not be the most accurate people, and so we just try not to jump in every single time, but when we feel like something really has to be corrected. At the same time, it stinks to be reading all of these things and just going, oh my gosh, this is so not true. And, you know, so we try not to.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be public forum. You know, it's everybody's entitled to their opinion. Not everyone's entitled to their own facts. But when they cross over the line a little too often about the actual factual part, we try to go on there and put actual facts out there. But we don't want to give the sense that Big Brother is watching you when you're posting something on Front Porch Forum. Even if it's a flamboyant opinion about something, we try to back off. But it's the hard part about serving on public boards. You have to just sort of take the flack and go with it.
Well, and sometimes people have said, you know, is anybody from the village reading this, and can they
Oh,
respond?
yes, we all read it.
We've done that.
Yeah.
Like Darby has put responses in, we've definitely responded when someone calls out and says, who knows what the answer is? We've definitely responded to those.
But what do you three think about it? How do you take it? Do you think we should be doing more? Do you think we should try to have some kind of instantaneous response, or thoughts?
No.
No?
There are too many times when you can get carried away with it, and I think you're probably doing just fine,
Okay.
responding when it becomes egregious. I think, you know, for me, there's a couple of things that I think that trustees could be doing that would help the planning commission out a little bit. One is, you've had some wonderful initiatives over the last couple of years, Design Five Corners and so on, and I think when you as a body get information and get a direction that feels good to you, it's nice for the planning commission to get that input back, so that as we move forward doing our work, we have the village mind, you know, in our back pocket, so we know what that direction is. Hopefully that finds its way into the LDC, but there's a lot of gray area in the LDC that takes a little negotiating to work your way through. So as much as we have an idea of what the village as a body really wants, and we can do our administrative task of going through the projects and make sure they meet that standard, then I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
The other piece is, I think that the village as a whole is still struggling with, you know, how do you monitor all the things that are happening? A lot of the information that gets out there is somehow inaccurate and comes back, and then people call in and neighbors come up and talk to you, and you know, you wanna set the record straight, but a lot of times we can't, as planning commissioners, talk about projects. And so it feels kind of uncomfortable. I know I'm bad at not saying something. I tend to answer my neighbors when they ask me questions, which isn't always, you know, I gotta be careful. But it's it would be nice if the place that when we get these questions, we can tell them to go, talk to this person or go to the village office or something, and then have the answers be, maybe in a formal capacity that is making sense and is accurate, and that whole process, I think we're still.
Yeah, we still don't have it. Yeah, I agree. We've wrestled with this.
Is the thing that's getting built actually what got approved, and, the media, let's say, is full of comments about what gets approved, and I'm just hoping that we can keep that a little cleaner.
Well, we went up to St. Albans and learned a lot a year ago, and one of the things they do is, and it's time consuming, is all of the projects, big projects that are coming before their planning commission, and all of the projects that have been approved, they get PDFs, they put them on their website, and they have very clear text saying, here's where this was, here's what happened, and here's what's going to happen, and here's the construction and the dates and everything. We've talked about doing that. The issue is just manpower. It sounds easy to do, but when you try to do these things yourself, you realize it takes a long time to pull all this information together and get it right and post it on the website. So we've talked about doing this, and is that the kind of thing you're saying? Or you mean more personal?
It may even be more, sometimes it's site visits, and I know these happen all the time, and it's just some way that the community as a whole can keep, track of what got approved, what's being actually done, and, who do they go talk to and when they have questions, because it's not supposed to be the planning commission.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So Burlington does a show on Channel 17 on development review. So when there's a new project coming up before the Planning Commission in Burlington, they go on Channel 17. It's the chair and a moderator from the station, and then the developer. And they go up and they walk through the plan, and they have call-ins for people to ask questions. And so I sit on the Channel 17 board. They'd love to do that for us. So if that's manpower again.
Yeah, I don't know how.
That's not what you're saying, I know, but it's another way of
There's
getting.
the whole MPA thing too, which I'll be at one of those tomorrow night, where, you are required as part of the planning process to go present to the neighbors in a formalized informal process.
Mm.
So, we had the last proposal, one of the last proposals that came in, we asked, have you talked to any of the neighbors about it? No, haven't said a word.
Mm.
So there, there might be ways, I'm not suggesting that we implement, a Burlington process, but there are ways to help the community recognize, assess, talk about, and not maybe in the normal process, which seems to be sometimes either nobody shows up or, 100
Right.
people show up, and, that means that something's not as comfortable for everybody as it should be, or as smooth and embedded into your system as it could be. Maybe
Right.
there's a way we can improve.
Are you finding it difficult at your meetings lately with audience members and,
No.
no?
Again, there's a small handful of people that show up for projects, but I think a lot of that is because many of the projects are centered in one location, and so you get, a tremendous response from the people that are greatly affected by those projects, and then nobody else.
Right.
And so, we continue.
Which is common in every community.
We continue to,
Yeah.
think that we're gonna get more people to show up and give us input, and then, we don't.
Doesn't happen.
Mhm.
Unless it's in your backyard.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing is, I think that you find sometimes these people that show up, or maybe people in general, will feel that their voice wasn't heard. I've heard that many times. Oh, well, we weren't heard because what occurred was counter to what they wanted to occur. So hence that, ergo, we weren't heard. Well, you were heard. It's just, I think, clarification of the fact that you're held to the land development code, and if it complies, you can't really hold up projects just because, you know, it's not physical or appealing visually or otherwise to someone in the community.
We do struggle with that, I think, and
Yeah.
that's a good point. And it's also, you know, as many times as somebody wants us to have the ability to regulate something, in most areas of the community, we don't. You know, there is no design review anywhere else except for the village center. So, you know, to the extent that somebody might want us to be able to do something, we actually aren't given that.
Do you think it would be helpful at some point to have some kind of a statement, and it gets kind of philosophical, because I think a lot of it, obviously some people think, 6 of us showed up at the planning commission meeting and said, we don't like this, and yet they went ahead and did it anyway, and not understanding exactly, if they don't listen to us, then why are you having public meetings? Why do we get to come and talk if you don't want to do what we tell you to do? So I think that maybe some kind of a statement that says, look, it's a public meeting, and we do want to hear what you have to say, but we, you know, that exactly says what is the role of public input in a planning commission process. That you can't really respond. It's not really a democracy at a certain point. People don't come in and you take a vote from the audience and decide whether you're going to do a project or not. But maybe some kind of a statement that explains the role of public input in the application review process. Maybe that would help clarify it.
In the last couple of years, there was actually a document that got put together explaining the public input process, and I think it got put in the front of the LDC this time
Right.
around.
Yeah.
And, you know, as great as that is, how many people have an LDC, right? I mean, the
Right.
planning commission has.
What I meant was more like, and it may sound silly, but maybe at the beginning of a meeting, when you are looking at and you know which projects are controversial and which are not, and maybe at the beginning of a meeting where you get a pretty good sense there's going to be some controversy, your chair or one of you reads this statement just to clarify for the folks. I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just thinking, the ones I've come to, I've seen, like, wow, you know, it's just there's some lack of understanding here about whose role and who's doing what. So maybe just something as simple as that could help a little bit.
And we're even having copies of that readily available on the chairs.
Right.
So that way for those who come late and happen to miss that, because let's just face it, people
I mean,
come late.
I think that would be helpful. Usually in those more contentious meetings, that statement often comes out eventually.
Yes, but at the beginning it might be good.
But maybe at the beginning, and maybe having some handouts that spells it out, just at least set some expectations
Yeah.
ahead of time. So, yeah, that could be helpful.
If somebody wanted to change something, how would they go about it? I mean, every 5 years we do an LDC
Right.
update, right?
Right.
So then they have to show up then and say, geez, you know, I don't want somebody building a commercial building right up to my back door. Can I
Right.
have them push it back like 5 feet? You know, is that the time they come forward and say, hey, you know, can you change that, or,
Right.
I don't
Well,
know.
actually, they can make that request anytime.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things I wanted to comment on from your leading question was,
Yes.
you know, how's it going on the
Yep,
board?
yep, yep.
And an area where I think there's room for improvement is the planning side of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be planners as well as the interpreters and appliers of the development regulations. And I think I've been on the board for 3 years and I haven't done any planning whatsoever. It's all been development review.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if, I would think that there's probably some issues out there that the planning commission could be tasked with taking the lead to study and make some recommendations. You know, for example, we approved a development that apparently has a parking problem. Perhaps the planning commission could look to take the lead in, you know, researching parking standards, or maybe getting involved in, you know, in a village-wide parking plan.
Mm-hmm.
But getting more involved that way, we talked about affordable housing. You know, I don't know if we have the time or the expertise to take on a whole affordable housing project, but maybe we could have some members be part of a task force that looks into overseeing a needs assessment and then making, and talking about this whole affordable housing issue, and making some recommendations on where we go next. You know, should we form an affordable housing committee that's permanent? You know, we're kind of, I think we're kind of struggling with one of our districts right now, the Transit Overlay District, which I still find to be a bit confusing in our land development regulations, and maybe we need to take a closer look at that to really try and envision what it is we want there, perhaps working with a consultant that could do some renderings or some plans or something like that. There's something, you know, there's municipal planning grants out there. So I'm just throwing that out there that,
Yep.
that maybe we could do some more planning.
Yeah.
And related to what you said, maybe there's some specific issues in the zoning regulations that need some further work, or further research.
Some
Yeah.
people are very verbal, they keep coming in, and obviously they're not getting their way, because they keep coming in, but
Right.
if we tell them what they can do to actually change this thing, you know, if you really wanna change it, you know, we're making notes here, so next time the LDC needs to be updated, we'll put in your suggestion, or be at this certain meeting to make sure that we, you know, get what we can.
Let me ask a question about workload. So do you, let me just get each of you can independently, your idea of doing more planning, it sound, you know, in addition to what you're doing, I mean, is the planning commission, you members have a sense of, are you doing too much work, not enough work, just about right? You've got more capacity to take on something like this?
We have a lot more capacity. We met once in the last 4 months, something like that.
Oh, that's important for us to know.
Yeah,
Wow.
so our workload as, when we're brought together to review a plan, we're obviously wait till there's an application that is ready to go, and then they schedule a meeting, but we've been less successful at scheduling meetings just to do planning. When we had the LDC to review, we did have a regular schedule to go through that. But, you know, if you say, okay, well, that only happens for 6 months every 5 years,
Right.
and you don't imagine yourself planning in between time, you know, you have a lot of capacity. And I think we've had a number of members that have looked for more planning just because we need it. You know, we know the village has always got something going on, and we would be happy to respond.
So something, for example, like, oh, we've got this parking issue in the village center. We
Yeah.
could say, hey, maybe the planning commission could give us some ideas about that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
We, in the sense that we do work at, you know, if the village has an issue and the trustees are aware of it and it's in that realm, I would think that would be normal. For whatever reason, it hasn't necessarily been exercised that much.
So we spent a large chunk of time this afternoon talking about parking needs in the village. And we were thinking about convening a work session
That's, I said that, yeah.
with us and the planning commission and talking about, and with developers, talking about parking. That feels to me like a directive that we could give the planning commission to say, would you please assess this situation and report back to us with the different ways that we can address it now and then within the next 5 years. I mean, we need that badly, so I think we have a problem and a solution right here.
Okay.
Colleagues are gonna love you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, Dan and I used to be planning,
Those three guys said yes, but the rest of us, wait a second.
Dan and I used to be planning commissioners, and we had the same complaint from time to time. It's like, we haven't met in 3 months, why are we doing this?
The only thing I ask is the same thing, I think we said, and I don't want to keep being, repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that that you don't put yourself in jeopardy by saying, here's a great idea for how to do something, and then the application for that thing happens and comes through you, and someone says, well, wait a second, these are the guys who planned this thing, you know, initially.
That's how that
said-
works.
I
That's how it
know,
works.
I think that mentality, we need to get our heads around that somehow.
And, you know, or many projects that come in, we, in the process of reviewing them, we find little places in the LDC that seem like they're not clear, or they need work, or what does that really ask for us to do? And I think all of those things are, you know, we should have a chance to work on the LDC to make it as clear as possible, and I don't know that waiting every 5 years to do it all at once is really the best idea.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
before? Just, we're very fond of our Design Five Corners plan. And I just wanna make sure you guys are all, I know that initially it wasn't communicated to the PC directly or correctly, but now I know it's there, it's part of the LDC. I mean, is that something that all of you are on board with, and when you see projects come through, is that a lens you look through when you're approving these projects? Is there anything about the Design Five Corners plan that you disagree with, or that you feel is great and you want us to continue with, and just your thoughts about it in general?
I gotta say, I'm not sure that it is that much in the forefront of our toolkit to use on every project, and part of it, I mean, I invited myself to that whole session somehow and made sure I was part of it because I thought it was so interesting. That's an example that I'd love to use as, you know, hey, if the trustees are very much in favor of this and as a municipal vision, that's a big thing, then the planning commission really ought to be on board with that.
Right.
And ought to make it a larger part of our planning and our review.
Are you saying that it's not right now? I
Well,
mean, it's in the LDC
It's
now,
in the
so-
LDC, but
it's
you know,
more-
how is it in the LDC? Is it embedded in the LDC, so when you read the chapters, or is it appended somewhere?
See, I see it more of a comprehensive plan issue. You're looking more at, the whole Design Five Corners falls more in line with the comprehensive
Overall,
plan.
yeah.
The overall plan for the community as a whole. And eventually, Jeff Carr is on the Regional Planning Commission with myself, and we talked about this, and incorporating our comprehensive plan and the town comprehensive plan to one plan as opposed to having, we brought it up, I think, at the last meeting, or town meeting, or village meeting, or say, instead of having just a blank space when you look at the town overlay, and that the concept plan should be for the whole community as a whole, not just the village, not just the town outside the village.
Yeah, that's
So-
been my feeling ever since I
The-
saw the town.
Yeah.
What you're saying is the Design Five Corners is not embodied in the land development code, it's just tacked onto the end of it, and it really needs to be knitted into the fabric of the land development code.
Ultimately, yes, but I
Okay.
think, you know, and there's another issue is when applicants or their designers look at the rules that they need to follow in order to present a project. Most of them will go straight to the LDC and not even look at the
Sure.
Comprehensive plan.
The plan.
municipal plan, which has a lot of the ideas in it that then get distilled down to the nitty gritty. So I think there is a tendency to get focused a little too much on the,
LDC.
you know, the size of your curbs and, you know, how much roadway you have and so forth, because those engineering details can be so, you know, you have them or you don't, whereas some of these other ideas, it's very subjective, you know, did you meet that standard, did you not meet that standard, are you following
Yeah.
the ideas that were in the Design
guess-
Five Corners or not?
I was under the impression that the Design Five Corners plan was more than just an appendix. And I was and I guess I have this misunderstanding because I made an assumption that that was just communicated to you somehow. But I think it might be safe to say that we totally buy into that, and we spent money on it, and we invested in the community, and we presented it at a village meeting. I mean, that's the plan. In 10 years, we wanna see
So-
that piece of
but-
paper
All
in
right, so
person.
here's the thing though, we have staff, right, which I don't think they're still here, but staff is supposed to be the focal point where all of that information that's coming from the municipal office and the leaders of the municipal office down through to the planning commission on every single project needs to go through there. And, you know, remember, we get a project at a planning commission meeting for literally minutes or maybe hours.
Right.
And we have to go through the entire thing and, you know, sometimes render a decision that night, you know, one shot. That project may have been in the village office for months with an opportunity to go through engineering review and presumably meeting the other criteria of the municipal plan and the land development code, before it comes to us.
Sure.
So I'm looking for that process to be a little more exacting. The engineering team does a super job, but they have plenty of time to do it. And, may go back and forth 2 or 3 times before they're satisfied that it actually meets the code, whereas that does not happen at the vision level, the planning commission level. We do not get that. So I think the process could be in there, but it's tricky once you're live in front of a camera to go through and nitpick ideals and visions that are subjective or maybe, you see what I mean?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But from your perspective, when you say knitted into the plan, so taking the conceptual visionary type things that are in the Design 5 Corners plan, translating that into language that goes into the LDC, that's what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I kind of thought we did that.
No, really.
The last rewrite of the LDC.
We actually have a, as I understand it, I don't know if Robin's gonna be here, but my understanding is that we were approved for, the RPC has a work program, and we did get it accepted, to do that, to have the Design 5 Corners, incorporated into the village plan.
Okay,
And the RPC is going to do that for us, but it hasn't been done.
I see.
It hasn't, that's a big piece of work.
Yeah,
I think it
I would
really
think
is a
so,
big
and
piece of work, and,
yeah.
yeah, it hasn't been done. So, yeah.
And that's a task that the planning commission should take on.
You should be
Right,
engaged in that, that's for
exactly.
sure.
And,
Yeah.
and I think the last update of the LDC was presented to us as an update, not a rewrite.
Right.
So we felt like we were pushing to rewrite as much as we did.
Mm.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things, I mean, that plan, that document, we did interview a lot of people and brought them all in, and Maura and others, and so there's a lot that can be in there, but it's a very tricky document to write well and then to enforce or,
Right.
to administer well.
Yeah.
You took up a lot of your time, sorry.
Yeah.
There's 3 of you, so like
It's
12
nice to
minutes
hear.
apiece.
Yeah.
That's how that worked out.
Anything else, guys? Anything else we haven't covered, or you want to get to us? And you know that you can come to us anytime, of course. It doesn't have to be every
I think the
annual.
joint sessions would, especially about the planning and the visioning, would be, at least twice a year maybe or
Yeah.
something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
all. Thank
much,
you so
all
much.
of you.
Aaron, you're next. And Aaron, probably, both you and Nick look like you had something to say there, so you can just jump right in and tell us what you think.
I don't know that it will take 12 minutes.
Yeah, go ahead. Take 2 minutes.
We meet maybe once or twice a year,
Yeah,
not as frequently as I did when I was on the planning commission for
Right.
a few terms.
right.
I think it is a testament to the frequency at which we meet, to staff, our planning documents, our commission. They do a thorough job. We've got really good, talented people on the planning commission. Hence, it makes our life easier sometimes as well. I think the last thing we had was a variance for a fence along a garage, so. The thrill is gone.
And you're sorry about that.
Actually, sometimes it's refreshing.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't take the heat like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
folks will, or the
Yes,
PC.
the plan, the PC does, yeah.
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 Do you feel like you're getting what you wanted?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, sure. I was on for 6 years on the planning commission, and then I took leave because it started to, I could see a potential appearance of conflicts between my duties with the town and being on the planning commission.
Exactly.
And then it was about a year or two, I believe, Mr. Gothier left the zoning board, and Tom Weaver worked on me for about a year and a half and finally convinced me of it. And I kind of took what he said to heart. He goes, you know, anybody who comes before the zoning board deserves to have a full committee, full 5 people to hear their plea or hear their case and give them an honest vote. So here I am.
Is there, you know, it sounds like obviously you guys have a lot more capacity to do more. So is there more you could be doing, that you should be doing, that you think we should know about?
I'm not going to speak for the other 4.
Oh, no, please, but I think this is one time you probably should. Yeah, you should.
I think this is where I'm one of those people
Yeah.
it's the whole community development merger type of thing going
Mhm.
on. Possibility of 1 planning commission and 2 DPRBs. I kind of like that idea, you know? It does free up the planners to do their whole overview of the community. And the addition of curb, as John was saying, or other minute details to a specific project left up to the DPRBs.
That's good.
It appeals to me. As both in the community and working as staff in the town, so.
Mhm. One possibility would certainly, even if we didn't move forward with that right away, would be that we could potentially have just one zoning board for the entire village and town. I don't, that's probably not possible, but, you know, I mean, I don't get a sense that the town zoning board is, you know, up treading water either.
I don't think they meet as frequent.
As you do.
As frequently as you guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's a potential place, and it might even be a potential way to test the waters and see how things work out.
Could be.
Would you still be able to stay on? That's the-
Oh,
that's what I
yeah.
have. That's-
Okay, never mind.
Probably not.
That's, okay, that's exactly.
I
right.
would
I think you have to step
wanna
off.
put
yeah.
myself out
Yeah.
there.
wouldn't work.
But philosophically, with a,
Good.
you know, that's a
Right.
It's
concept.
something to think about, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Any
in
other
the
questions?
meantime, I'm here for the village, so.
We're very grateful. too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for all you do. Yeah, absolutely. And for your time on the PC.
Thank you.
We were sorry to see you go.
It was fun while it lasted. I had a couple flashbacks of heads here tonight with John.
All right.
Ready, folks?
All right.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nick, come on up.
Well, I was hoping you were gonna call on me for an exit interview from the planning commission.
Sorry, we should have. Consider this your exit interview.
Okay.
But I can tell you we're chomping at the bit. You probably had a lot you wanted to add to the conversation, so jump right in. And first of all, let us say how much we appreciate the work you're doing on the tree commission.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I was just saying, in terms of, one of the frustrations I think I felt was that planning portion, that we signed on to be on the planning commission to meet twice a month.
Uh-huh.
And as was said tonight, there were times we did not meet for the longest. And there were requests, okay, let's look at the historical component. There were different things. We did want to research to be better planners, you know, and be looking at the whole picture and how we could, you know, come up with code that would really fit. So that was a frustration. The other part was sometimes on enforcement. You know, we have a land development code, and often I felt that some of it, and I think others shared that it wasn't enforced. And I know that's partially of a human resource issue, not
Yeah.
having enough people here to do it, but I think that there's a frustration when you write a code, something, and it doesn't get enforced. So I would hope that that could be improved.
I'm glad you brought that up, and it
Yeah.
needs to be emphasized, yeah. It's something
Yeah.
to think about.
And you dealt a little bit with the you know, conceptual final, not allowing that to be at the same meeting in any plan unit development.
Yep.
And that was part of the frustration, I think, that planning commission members had. But that's my exit. But tree committee, we've got a good committee. We've got great people, Brad Darby helping, and Rick Jones. We seem to be working well together, and I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 years we've been operating.
Yep.
We've got a new software program we're gonna learn about for long-term maintenance of the trees that could be, can follow different people. So we're hoping that's gonna be
okay.
coming in place from the inventory that we initially done back in 2014, and then the management tool to taking care of the trees that the village has. Yeah.
I just, on that, you were very instrumental in the trees right across the street here for the 4 Pearl Street project and in the whole conceptual
Right. And
placement of them and so forth. Are you happy with the way they're looking, or?
Truthfully,
No.
there was, I think that a lot of those trees were left in a yard over the winter because they kind of ran out of time. And you can look and see some of the trees that aren't doing particularly well. And I actually was going to try and speak with the owner to see if they're being taken care of, because there's been so much done underground to have some big sustainable trees growing there. It would be a real shame to see something that is not maintained to be that way, yeah.
What is your authority to have that conversation and to do something about it?
I think it goes back to what the code said, the LGC, that it has to be a viable tree for so many years. So Robin could go back to them and request that it be replanted, or,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you think
But
you really need to
he
be
can't
replanted?
really say, well, you're not watering enough. It doesn't go to that kind of detail.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So hopefully they'll take off, yeah.
Is there anything we should be doing? Anything more we can be doing?
No, I think one of the things we're going to look at too is down the road, we're going to have some big projects going on with the Crescent Connector.
Yes.
There really isn't much of a budget in place for landscaping and streetscaping there. And I think that should really be on the radar. I mean, there isn't a lot of real estate to do something there, but it would be a shame not to take advantage of a whole new street and improving the streetscape of the downtown area. Those are expensive propositions to do, much more so than what we're doing now, where we can stretch a dollar a long ways, but once you get into the hardscape of planting trees, and it gets pretty costly.
Has anyone said anything to you about the trees on the bike path that are dead? Bike walk,
The multi-use path.
multi-use path over by Central Beverage?
No, I haven't.
Some newly planted
They're like little,
pine trees.
yeah, they're like little evergreens, I don't know. Yeah.
And normally, the contractor is responsible for that in that.
Yeah, it has something to say.
So they should be, I would think, replaced. Again, it's the follow-up of doing it.
Rick?
So we're on track with that. They are under guarantee period. So our office has been in contact with the contractor and those will be replaced.
Awesome.
So we'll take care of it.
Thank you, Rick.
Because that is something the village is going to be responsible for
Yeah.
afterwards, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we've been working a lot with homeowners on our planting this year in particular. And I think it's a win-win situation for the village and for the homeowners.
It is.
It's a little bit of an investment, but the trees will do better having that larger real estate rather than just the green belt that exists, which is very small in the village. Yeah.
Any other questions? I thank you. I'm sorry if we held you up, but I think,
No, that was
I think it was
exciting.
all, I think it was a good conversation for you. I think it was good for all of us to hear and
Yeah.
add your 2 cents. That was good. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
Nick.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Alrighty. And so, Pat, I think that
I think we're there.
wraps up Section 5, and we are now on to Section 6, which is reappointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Pat Scheidel.
Yes, we have, initially, we would like you to vote to make the following appointments for 3-year terms, beginning with July the 1st, 2017 through June 30th of 2020. And those appointments would be Aaron Martin, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, John Alden, Planning Commission, Andrew Boutin, Planning Commission, Joel White, Planning Commission, and Nick Meyer, Tree Advisory Committee. And that is a recommendation.
I also have Phoebe Spencer, Bike Walk Advisory Committee, and Jeff Froelich, Bike
Right,
Walk.
they are both out of state at this time, and will have to come to a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Okay, so we are not gonna, we could appoint them to, without,
Are they both, they're both asking to be reappointed?
Yes, they both are.
but on the other hand, I don't wanna deny them, and if we did, they may feel not compelled to come, so I don't know, I'd like to give them the opportunity to come, so what does
Still
everyone
we can
think?
still appoint them and have them come back in. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if we could just do an appointment and just have them, if they'd like to come in.
Is everyone good with that?
Yeah.
I'm not making it conditional, but yes, you're Rick, go ahead.
As chair of the committee, I would really appreciate if you would appoint them, reappoint them, and then invite them in.
Okay,
We actually have a meeting next Monday,
Okay.
and if they aren't appointed, we'll have them come in.
It was purely I didn't want to give any offense that, you know, we didn't want to afford them the same opportunity. Just want to make sure they understood that.
I think that would be fine with
Okay.
them, but as chair, I.
So I would like to add their names to their appointments to the list you just read off, Pat, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll move that entire slate.
Second.
Any further discussion? The only discussion I would have is that we notify Jeff and Phoebe that we would like very much to hear from them and come in and have an interview with us, but yeah, that sounds at their convenience.
I think preventing the committees from doing their work would be a detriment, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any further discussion? We had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes.
Thank you.
All right.
The next, George, is for you, signing a letter for the Essex Westford School Board.
Right.
Do we want to flip the schedule a little bit so
Yeah,
that
let's-
Jim's not waiting all
Yeah,
this time?
I think Jim
That's all
and, yeah, let's do that. And so I will ask everyone's just permission that we move up reappointment to is it the Clean Water Advisory Committee? And do we want to move up the other appointment that Rick is waiting for, the Evaluation of Public Works consolidation? Well, actually, we have that,
Yeah.
we did that already. But let's move things around and move the 2 approval letters down to the bottom of the list there, Pat. That's okay? Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think what we can do is maybe pick it up with managers' annual appointments.
Okay, that's easy. Each year, I'm supposed to be making appointments as the manager for village treasurer, tax collector, village clerk, village attorney, village fire chief, and village engineering consultant. And this year is no different. I recommend that the trustees approve the annual appointments that the manager makes for a period of July 1st of 2017 to June 30th of 2018 for the following: Susan McNamara Hill, the village treasurer and tax collector and village clerk; David Barra for village attorney; Chris Cabral for village fire chief; and Hamlin Consulting Engineers for the village engineering consultant.
So moved.
I'll second.
Lane second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
And thank you to all those people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
guys.
if I might.
Yes, oh, yes, Rick, I'm sorry. Yes, please go ahead. I didn't mean to ignore you out there.
For a moment, So in the past years, I've been here all by my lonesome. Tonight, you'll see to my right is Mr. Kirshner, Jeff Kirshner.
Yes, hi, Jeff.
Registered professional engineer.
Yes.
You know, it's my pleasure to announce that Jeff is the president of Donald L. Hanley Consulting Engineers. a new
Oh.
Role that he's taken on. And so I wanted to bring him along and introduce you to him in that new light as president. So.
First of all, congratulations and welcome, and we know of your work and we appreciate all that you've done. You know, we've
Thank you.
heard many good things and comments about you over the years about,
Well, we certainly enjoy our work
Yeah.
for you guys as well.
well, we appreciate it.
And Jeff, of course, is a native son of Essex Junction,
Ah.
through the school system here, started the company, again, mowing the lawn in high school, and so, and now is the president of the company, which we're very
Wow.
pleased about.
So we can get a completely unvarnished opinion. How are we doing in terms of development in the village center? You thumbs up, thumbs down, you know, jury's still out? Don't want to put you on the spot there.
Well, as a resident since 1965, I would say we're doing great.
Okay.
You know, if you want to have a downtown, you want to have a downtown. And there's pressures and there's conflict and there's, you know, there has to be some give and take. If you want to fill the space and bring people in and have activity and have a downtown, then, you know, you don't want to have a sea of parking lots.
Yeah.
And so,
That's absolutely.
part of our downtown plan is going to have to require some adjustment from the people who use the facilities to have to walk just a little further.
Yes.
And you know, if you think about going to Burlington, and how far you have to walk to get to really anywhere, if any services where you have to park in Burlington, compared to the really very short distance you might have to walk within the village, I still say we've got the better balance.
Yeah.
I think the way we're headed in that plan is good, because it's going to take that bringing of people into our core to bring life, that help the businesses flourish and help everything else go that makes us want to be the community we are. And, you know, as the Bike Walk Committee voice speaks,
Yes.
you know, we want to encourage people to walk and bike and, you know, but not be unreasonable. We're not saying, look, people need to ride their bicycles year round or when it's 20 below, but, you know, we want to accommodate all people, you know, in all modes of transportation. So I think we're good. You know, we talk about people's comments and concerns and people showing up at the hearings. Really, those folks need to be at the planning process to have input to the rules, because obviously all the commissions, once the rules are promulgated and approved, that's the rule. Those are the guidelines, and we owe it to everybody, whether it's a resident or a developer who comes through, to follow those rules, because predictability is what makes us a friendly neighborhood, a friendly community for development, because we are predictable. And when you get to a point where you're not predictable, it's very hard to attract that growth, so.
Exactly.
So.
Well, very well said, and appreciated, and particularly your earlier point that, you know, it's a balance. We need more parking, but we don't want to have just a sea of asphalt. That's what we're trying to actually get rid of. And also for stormwater issues as well. So we don't want to. It is hard. It is hard, and having only, you know, underground parking is expensive. So, and I will add. Sorry, I don't mean to go on and on, but I doubt that there's ever really a time when there's no public parking somewhere in the village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can always find it if you look for it. Yeah. Anyway.
Again, thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Look forward to another
And
year.
congratulations, Jeff. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Pat, I interrupt, so you want to continue? Let me see.
Yes, this is the recommendations to the CCRPC and the TAC, the Transportation Advisory Committee. It's recommended that the trustees reappoint the following representatives to CCRPC for a 2-year term beginning July 1st of 2017 through June 30th of 2019. For CCRPC representative, Dan Karen. For CCRPC alternative, Andrew Brown. The CCRPC second alternate, Jeff Carr. And the TAC representative, Robin Pierce.
we hear a motion?
No, so moved.
Second? Do I hear a second?
You should.
I'll second. I'll second that one. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And thanks, guys, for serving. Thanks, Dan, for being on the
Someday I wanna
RPC.
do that.
Hmm?
So someday I wanna do that.
Well, you know, you can
Not at
talk
the
about
moment.
switching,
Not at the moment.
doing a switcheroo, give up some of your
Yeah, I
stuff.
know, I should just go.
You can
yeah.
negotiate.
Moving right along.
Moving right along.
Reappointment to the CCRPC Clean Water Advisory Committee.
Mhm.
2 staff members are being recommended, and those staff members are Chelsea Mandigo as the village representative on the Clean Water Advisory Committee,
Mhm.
and James Dutress as the alternate representative for a term of 2 years, beginning July 1st of 2017 through June 30th of 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Jim, anything to add to that? All good? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And why don't we just
Ad hoc evaluation committee for the Public Works consolidation. It's recommended that the trustees concur with the appointment of Justin Rabidou to the ad hoc evaluation committee for the Public Works consolidation. And for the benefit of the TV audience, that at the beginning 3 years ago of the assigned knows a lot about Public Works departments. The select board chose from among their ranks Mike Clegman and Sue Cook and Justin Rabidou, who is Essex Junction resident, the Public Works Director of South Burlington. As the technical advisory, he also has experience in consolidated public works departments while working as the Director of Public Works in Stowe when they consolidated the village and the town. I believe we discussed the matter of the trustees' concurrence previous, but we still would like a vote for that concurrence, and so that's the issue that's before us and the recommendation before you.
Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say
You do
something. I worked with Justin on the Police Advisory Committee for a couple of years, and I think he's an excellent choice for that.
I will make a motion that the trustees indicate their approval of the appointments to the, as described, to the ad hoc evaluation committee for the Public Works consolidation.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So I'll circle back up to number B, and very quickly, in a discussion that I had with Pat about the deed for the Park Street School, one of the issues that came up was that we had given verbal approval for continuing the ACE, allowing the ACE program to continue at the Park Street School, but the Prudential Committee attorney had asked the Prudential Committee or the Chittenden Central Supervisory Union, did you get this in writing? Is there some written agreement? I just sort of decided that instead of waiting to formally hear from them and then formally answer back, I would cut to the chase and author a letter saying, basically describing, putting in writing what we had agreed to, which is that we would allow the ACE program to continue at Park Street for the next 3 years, rent-free. And that I added that at some point before the beginning of the next year, it might be a good idea for Pat and Brad and whoever the appropriate representatives from the high school and for the ACE program may be to get together and see if there's anything else that we need to know about the ACE program in terms of anticipating their specific needs, since they will become our tenants and no longer the school district's tenants. So I want your permission to sign the letter, and I will send it to the chair of the new Union School District Board, Martha Heath, with copies to the appropriate lawyers and all the other appropriate folks. Sound good? Is that okay? Any questions about it?
No.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks, George.
We probably need a motion.
Yeah, to authorize you to send the letter.
So I need a motion from someone to approve me to, authorizing me to sign the letter stating our approval of continuation of the ACE program at the Park Street
So
School.
moved.
Okay, second? Andrew, second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the second issue is there's 2 years of debt left on the Maple Street pool, Maple Street renovation bond that was taken out earlier in the century. And because we are taking over the recreation department, we will be assuming the debt. Again, no surprises, we discussed this in our general background, as part of the general background of taking over Maple Street Schools. So I need authorization to sign the letter acknowledging the assumption of debt for the Essex Junction Recreation and Parks Department.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion?
Quick question, or
Yes,
just quick
yes,
clarification
yes.
for those who haven't been around about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
All this is taking it from the Essex Junction School District debt, so the
Right.
Essex Junction residents, and keeping it under Essex Junction
Right.
residents,
It's-
so we're not
It's not
assuming new
changing
debt.
anything.
It's
Just a
not,
different checkbook.
it's not changing the debt one penny. It's not changing anybody's tax bill one penny. It's not changing anything one penny. It just, we agreed that we would become the debt holder as opposed to the Essex Junction School District. It's exactly the same community.
That's what Elaine said. Need this change in the checkbook.
Yep. Okay, so you made a motion, seconded. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so new business. I'm sorry, Pat, I'll let you check that off.
Yes, we're good. Thank you so much.
Okay. And so now we're on to new business and bid award for the wastewater treatment fund headwork screen. Thank you, Jim.
No, thank you. No problem, I appreciate you being here tonight.
No problem.
You got a full agenda. I got a little scared when I saw it was at the end, but you're making good time.
We've been at it for 6 hours.
You've had a long day. I figured you want me to railroad the discussion.
Now, we want a full technical discussion.
Well, I was before you a little while ago asking for a select bidding process due to some of the problems we've had with prior screening equipment at the facility. And I appreciate the approval of that. With that, we received a total of 4 bids with quite a broad spread in
Yeah.
price. And the recommendation, we've done some of the preliminary review, and we're asking for clarification of some warranty issues of the apparent low bidder, Fairfield Service Company. Fairfield Service Company has made a screen that looks amazingly like the Duperon screen that just went off full patent warranty, so that all of a sudden there's a flood of new equipment out. I need to point out that Fairfield only has about 5 installations, 2 up and running. And for that, they've offered a 5-year comprehensive warranty. I want to get a clarification on what comprehensive means to them before we award the bid. Formally award and sign off on the bid, but the 2 installations that have been in the longest, I spoke with both of the facilities. They've had some minor issues, but they've been taken care of and operating fairly well. This type of equipment is fairly simple compared to the other type that we have. There's basically, everything's fixed, and they use off-the-shelf equipment to automate the raking and cleaning process. So the risk is minimal, I think. But again, the references worked out very well, with one exception, and that was an early version of something that they've since re-engineered completely.
Okay.
So bottom line is, it's like buying the first model year in many respects, but the price warrants good consideration, and the extended warranty kind of tips the scale to take the risk.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
So you compared Fairfield to Duperon. What about Franklin?
Franklin has a slightly different piece of equipment, and it's fairly new to the market as well. Again, a lot of it, once the Duperon patent was released, others started coming out with it.
Okay.
I guess they, from what I understand, they protected their patent pretty aggressively.
Gotcha.
But we have looked at the Franklin, we have some Franklin equipment, and if you're looking at the cost differential there, I mean, it's almost equal to upscale into the Duperon. So again, because most of it's fixed and in place and above the water line, it's readily managed and taken care of. And we have bypass capability in case there was a failure, so. You know, and it has been fully reviewed by the engineer. We have another stage, that's a submittal stage, after the bid is awarded, where we get to go through the details in much finer review, and we'll have a chance to do more.
Just curious, is this screen actually the last structure or last piece of equipment before that treated water is brought back into the river or enters the river?
It's actually the first stage to take out the heavy material that comes
Okay.
down the pipe to protect the downstream
Oh, I
equipment.
see, okay.
And in the capital program, when we started discussing this, part of the reason for asking for replacement of this, the current screen is the second from the same manufacturer. And when we cleaned the digester as part of the construction project that was cleaned in 2014, we had about $100,000 change order just because of the amount of rags that had accumulated in the digester.
Oh, that's
So
right,
the screen
that's
was
right.
obviously not doing its job, and life cycle cost is cheaper to replace it. We tried to optimize it for years, and it does a very good job of capturing the material and then throwing it back into the channel downstream in a larger ball. I mean, it does capture and grind, but we're gonna see our volume of waste that's carted to the landfill increase substantially because everything is in front of the screen as opposed to over the top and behind in this case. It's above the water level, so you can better monitor what's going on. And there's a little more control because the hopper discharges into a confined area that doesn't have internals that would allow it to flop back into the channel. That's why we wanted to go with the select screen as opposed to some of the other options that are out there.
So it's going to actually make the process after that more efficient, obviously. Much more
Because we'll be
efficient.
screening out
Right,
the
screening out
heavy
those
things.
heavies, so you don't have to worry as much, yeah.
Right, and right now, the technology 10 years ago was to grind it up, wash the organics off, and then separate it. Now it's get it out of there. A lot of that is because flushable wipes and things that go down the drain that really should not, that can cause clogs and sewage overflows. So what we're doing with this is taking advantage of the poor performance, the capital replacement, and going back to a basic screen that allows us to capture this material in a much more, I guess, an original state. You'd be surprised some of the things that come down the pipe. And instead of trying to grind them up, we just pull them out and wash them. And we can't sanitize them, but we do wash the bacteria off and then dry it and compact it so it can be hauled away to the landfill.
Wow.
Okay.
Some of the finer discussions of the wastewater process.
Any other questions for Jim? Then I will move that we award the bid for the headwork screen to Fairfield Service Company for $133,000 contingent on satisfactory completion of reference and installation checks of current installations.
Second.
That was instantaneous.
You can have it.
Photo finish.
Okay,
All right, second.
so Dan has the second. Any further discussion, questions for Jim? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Jim.
consensus would be, I'll go over the warranty information with Pat. If there's any concern, we'll come back to the
We'll come
board.
back.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, we are on to the manager's report.
Yeehaw. Predominantly, this is a delineation of our upcoming meetings and bid awards for the Essex Junction Fire Department truck and engineering services for the Main Street pedestrian bridge. There'll be a 4th of July celebration at Maple Street Park. And the block party is scheduled for the 15th, and the street dance, of course. We have one regular meeting scheduled thus far for the month of July, 2 for the month of August, and 2 for the month of September. That does not include any additional meetings that may occur, joint meetings or so, but this is what is known at this point in time.
Pat and I had a discussion earlier today about the long-standing and cherished tradition of the Essex Junction trustees of only trying to have one meeting in July and August, and how we have discarded that tradition or ignored that tradition in recent years because of all the stuff that we
Yeah.
have to do. And so I would like to leave it to see if we can't possibly go back to that and maybe just schedule one regular meeting for July and one meeting for August. It may not be possible. There may be too much stuff to do. And then I also pointed out to Pat that if we are talking about having joint meetings with the select board, and we've already given Pat the assignment to
Yes.
schedule those, presumably one of them's gonna probably has to happen soon.
Has to happen
Maybe
soon.
two of them. So it may not be possible, but to try to keep it, if we can, to one regular meeting. Is that good?
That's
That-
good, or light agendas, we'll work, we'll try to get as much done as we can in between meetings and come to you when we have to and try to keep your workload a little less. 'Cause
I'd be surprised if you're able to accomplish that.
I would
but
too, but
It's fine if you can.
Plan for
Thank
the worst,
you.
hope for the best.
Exactly.
and then it just.
Well, one thing, if, well, I guess I can't stipulate this, I can ask that if we do any of the joint meetings, meaning it does pop up, that as we heard from somebody earlier, Maura brought up, that she went before the select board at roughly 10:30 at night. I'd prefer not to have our meetings at 10:30 at night with the select board or running late, so the earlier the better, is all I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, and, Maura did come at an extraordinarily busy agenda. The select board has taken that to heart a little bit and then moved the start time up a half an hour to 7 o'clock, so we have a better chance of having our joint meeting start at 7 and maybe even a little bit earlier. We'll see, we'll do the best we can. It is a joint meeting. In terms of just my workload, it hasn't changed very much. Go to a lot of meetings, and I'm on the Joint Study Committee for Regional Dispatch on an ongoing basis, so, but that's about it.
How often do they meet? When do they-
Oh, fortunately, once a month, so that's good. It's the in-between reading time and other, discussions of somewhat related topics. And the police chief is very active in the technical group, which meets as needed to do a lot of the scut work on coming up with budgets and schedules and contracts and all those things that need to be factored into, the final report. So, but it's moving forward at various speeds. The town of Colchester is partnering up with the city of South Burlington, and they're going to have a joint dispatch operation as a beta test to prove,
That's a good idea.
as most of the managers would like to see, me, myself included, how this would work in real time, in real life. So that's gonna also be going on too, so appreciative to my colleagues in Colchester and South Burlington for making that happen.
All right.
And that's it.
Thank you, Pat. So we're on to trustee comments and concerns, reading file. Any comments, concerns that you have not raised already this afternoon? I will just quickly mention that we did get a letter. It's really not a reading file thing. We got a letter from Carolyn Smiles, who is the local coordinator and for Amnesty International, thanking us for our prompt response for the letter to the mayor of Kiev. I want to say, the mayor of Kiev, and regarding the rights, protecting the honoring and respecting the rights of the lesbian, gay community in Kiev. And it's right here in case you want to read it. Any other comments, questions regarding the reading file? No? All good? Okay. So we are now on to the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. I'll put a long
We
day.
are adjourned. I think we accomplished quite a bit.
Oh, my
We've got
goodness.
so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
done, my brain hurts.
Yeah, come on.
I love retreat day, and I'm exhausted at the end of retreat day.
So you had a